You got 1 minute. So, no, it's time.
Jeez.
We're running late, aren't we?
Is it okay if I sit doing the flex or?
Yes. Call a meeting to order at 5:30. We'll start with the flag song. The reason I was asking is because Phil Eagle said he might come again tonight. Welcome, everyone. Beautiful day. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Michelle. Second. Sage. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. 5-0. Superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. I agree, Deb. What a beautiful day. Hopefully a whole week. Just a clarification on the calendars that went out. It said there's no school on March 7th, and there is, so we're going to make sure that we get that out and make sure everybody knows that students are in session on March 7th. The Todd County leadership team is continuing to attend job fairs. This week, Marlis will attend the Black Hills State University job fair on March 4th, and then Dana is going to Sioux Falls. Todd County Middle School National Junior Honor Society is requesting to hold a dance on March 11th, and they are making plans and considering precautionary measures and expectations for the dance. Special Olympics Mission Games are scheduled for April 27th after a 2-year hiatus, so it's exciting to have those back on the calendar. Winter activities are winding up, and Chuck's here tonight to tell us about that. Hope College is moving forward with their May term to come here and bring students to have their experience here with within the classrooms in the district. In your packet, there's a letter from Catherine Posniak, if you remember her. She was here as a teacher from 2004 to 2008. And it's a donation letter in honor of her father, Ed Posniak, to the middle school science fair in the amount of $6,954.69. So that's pretty exciting. The Todd County School District Goal in-person meeting needs to be scheduled in the next couple of weeks here with the dates that Daniel has sent us. I received a call today from Keith Wan, and he was wanting to know if any of the Todd County students would like to participate in the Doolittle Raid activity in May, and he's going to send more information on that. And that was in response to the Pearl Harbor attack on December 14th, and that happened on April 18th, 1942. So kind of interesting and a live activity for kids to participate in. And like I said, as he gives more information, we'll decide how that, or what that looks like. The spring chats are taking place with the South Dakota Statewide Family Engagement Center. I had a meeting today with Dr. Dekoff and Whitney Pierce and to continue the native voice planning and updates. So that's exciting work that is continuing. And the family chats are continuing. So in your packet, you have the counselors' reports. And you can see that they stay very busy. And depending on which school you're at, what's going on. Bo has provided a food service report for you. How many meals have been served to date. And he continues to work through different situations in the food service arena. So we're very glad that Bo's on board. There's Chuck's report. We'll let him get after that in just a second. Then Anna also has a special ed report in there for you to review. And then Krista also has the data from some of the assessments that we've done that's pretty exciting that I've been telling you about for the last few weeks here. So she will do a little more on that at the end here. And then I put in there the lease agreement, and I've been working with Rodney on a draft for an updated one. And the main thing would be so that the leases would have an address for Golden West, Cherry Todd, different people to actually give them when they take control of their apartment to get different things turned on. So we'll look at those a little more if you have any questions. Rodney had some suggestions and we did review those and put the language in that he recommended in the draft. Then the last part is resources that you have. Shelby Schmidt, our high school social worker, attends the Society of Care meetings, and I asked her if I could share the minutes on that. You can see the different organizations there that we coordinate with and try to make sure that we're partnering with and having conversations with on a monthly basis. Of course, there's mental health resources again. We have those quite frequently, and that's a list for you to look at there. Then there's Catherine Posniak's letter that came along with that donation. And the last thing, well, the next thing in your packet is the family and community engagement plan that's continually being worked on. And then a couple of other resources, a trauma lens with some different trainings that staff can attend. And then there's one for law enforcement that I thought was interesting that I sent on to Bailey Denoyer, our SRO. So different opportunities and try to get those to the individuals that would benefit from them the most or can share them with the appropriate individuals. If you don't have any questions,
I have a question
Chuck is here. Okay.
On the lease agreement, we had talked, I think this summer, about putting in there somewhere if there's suspicion of drug use, that we would require that they be tested.
Do a drug test. I can ask Rodney about that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? I know that's a lot.
Still looking yet.
And I put the lease agreements in there to kind of look at, and when we're ready to put it on the agenda to update the policy, we can do that. But if you guys want to review those, look at those, and I will take Linda's suggestion or question to Rodney and see what his recommendation will be on that.
Keith Long did call me up that day. I gave him Carol, the superintendent's number, and I also gave him St. Francis superintendent's number as well. And this sounds like a real big deal, and he's working with Scott at the tribe too. And that's where they actually fly in, one of the bomber in, and they wanted to, let the
Kids
students
get in
at
it.
both schools see, get an idea of the actual bomber. So they was that's what they're working on anyway, but they wanted to include the schools in that. So Rodney, he's working with Rodney too. Scott. Sorry,
Yeah.
Scott, and on this, so that's a little bit of what I know.
Where are they gonna land that thing at?
I don't know.
He said here.
At
He
Rosewood?
said they could, yep.
Wow.
They could at Rosebud.
At the hospital?
Yep.
Nice.
He wanted to know how many students in each school. So I said, well, Todd County has 2,000. He didn't know that many. St. Francis over 600. So I knew a little bit about that.
That's
so.
cool.
Yeah, that is a wonderful opportunity.
Let's throw a Chuck.
Let's have Chuck.
Chuck, you're on.
Uh-oh,
Thank
uh-oh.
you, guys. Good to see everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay with this. First of all, I want to apologize. I had a couple spelling errors in this, so don't make fun of me, or if you do it privately.
I gotta redo it, Chuck. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as Carol said, the winter sports seasons are coming to an end now. We've got girls just concluded on Saturday. Boys are doing this week, the region play starting this week. So going to the girls, boy, it's been quite an adventure for us to reschedule. For the girls program, we had 3 games that we could not even get in because of everything getting shifted back. So they ended up with just 17 games of the season. They unfortunately lost in the second round to Red Cloud, who's a very good basketball team. Their season ended up 11-8, I believe. We had 18 girls out, and it wasn't like that all year. A few of those girls came in after a semester break, where their grades were good enough, so we added a few, but by then it was really late in the season. We couldn't even get our C games in this year.
Hey, Chuck, who was the girl that qualified for the All-Star?
I'm
Walking
gonna say
in.
Alexis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, we graduate 4 seniors from this squad, so we're gonna have a really good nucleus coming back next year. A lot of young players, we're getting a lot of good time on the varsity level, so, that's what's gonna be going on with the girls. For the boys, obviously, we're in our first round of the playoffs this week. We're hosting Bennet County tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Second round will take place at Lakota Tech on Friday. Hopefully we'll be there. I don't see a reason why we shouldn't be there, to be honest with you. The numbers, we started at 32, we ended up at 25, and we will graduate 6 seniors off this squad. Okay. Wrestling just concluded with the state championships in Sioux Falls, and one wrestler, Rocky Weedman, placed 6th. in the 220-pound weight class, so congratulations to Rocky
Yep.
on a great season, actually. Our numbers in this were really low. We had 6 boys and 2 girls start the season. We ended up with 3 boys and 1 girl at the end of the season. And actually, the girl, we did get her to a few meets at the end of the season. You know, it's really an eye-opener for her. So, and she was a pretty good wrestler at the middle school level, so. We have, obviously, a big concern about our numbers. Wrestling is really low. Girls basketball, obviously, was low as well. Boys seems to be pretty solid. So, I'm hopefully gonna be able to put together some meetings, and not just with the high school coaches, but also with the middle school coaches and elementary coaches, if they wish to come, to talk about what we can do to turn those programs around a little bit. And obviously, it's gonna take a lot of work in order for that to happen. So we're gonna be asking a lot of those coaches at the lower levels to step up a little more. And I'm talking about summer work as well. I mean, just because the high school's doing it, doesn't mean the middle school can't be doing it, doesn't mean that we can't be doing this at the elementary level too, our coaches. And even though they're not paid, you know, we're hoping that they will get on board with this and look at the overall health of our programs. So we do need some help there. That meeting will take place over the next couple months. Once we get those done, I will let you guys know how they went, and there's gonna be obviously some recommendations coming out of those coaching staffs that we can do to become, you know, to make this really work for us. So that's kind of what we're gonna be doing. And I put a list of things that I thought were key in order to get us, you know, back on the track here. The first one has to be parent involvement. We have to get parents involved in what we're doing. The other thing is facilities. I put infusing money into the summer programs, and I think a lot of that has to deal with our coaching staff. A lot of them have families. You know, it'd be nice to be able to try to come up with something. I don't know if we can do that. I know legally we can't pay for camps and stuff that leave here, but I'm hoping that we can work something out as far as getting our coaches paid, at least a little something to help them through the summer. Then obviously coaches and volunteers to make that work. Okay, so that's it. Spring sports, we're gonna do our track meeting on Wednesday. We're hoping for anywhere from 25 to 30 kids or higher to come out and be a part of the program. Obviously, we have a brand new resurfaced track. It really looks nice. So we're hoping that we can, you know, draw a few kids into that. And I always look at track as an indicator of what your sports programs look like. Because all the better schools, they have a large number of track kids out. And then that's what we're hoping for here. So golf, girls golf will be starting. We're gonna be recommending a new guy to our list, and that's Anthony Bizzardi to take over the program, doing step down. So hopefully, you know, Anthony can work with the girls and kind of get them rolling, or boys now, I guess. No, girls this fall. Yeah, let me get this right. Yeah, girls this spring. So hopefully we can get that rolling as well. So that's really kind of an overview. Like I said, concerns are numbers. You know, you guys, it's really been a difficult road to get kids back into a routine. It really has been tough. And so, you know, our coaches are working every day on making sure kids are being in school, getting their grades, whatever we need to do to encourage them to be here and to do the work. So, any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Will you be having track for the elementary age students?
Well, I'm not sure on that. I'm sure they will. I would hope they do. I don't think people realize how important elementary is to what we need to do. You know, we're not hiring cross-country coaches, or we're not having a cross-country program. It impacts directly how many kids were out for cross-country, which I think we had 12 this year. So yes, I would hope that we could, or should, have track.
Chuck, you had facilities as a key item. What do you mean by that?
Well, and I know we have all kinds of things going on, but, and I'm thinking really specifically of wrestling. we either have to do something that we have a facility for them to be in, or we have to find an existing facility that we can use. I think it's important that these kids have a mat to go to, not just during the season, but basically year-round, that they can work. Because we have AAU going on. I know we use the elementary school for some of that, but I really kind of think that we need to start looking ahead and how we're going to accommodate, especially that program. So. And then the other side of that, Tim, is making sure the middle school and the elementary schools, or wherever we can do this summer work, is available for us to do that.
Okay.
Will there be needs for transportation if you do have summer activities for students? Or?
Well, I can't promise that. That's, it's been a tough road for them guys down there.
Yeah, I know.
Our coaches had to carry the ball a lot this year on transporting kids to away games. So I guess that just kind of depends on what's available for the summer.
You didn't ask about a bus.
What's that?
You didn't ask about a bus.
Well, like I said, it's a tough time, not just for us, for everybody. Obviously, bus drivers and, supplies or whatever we need. It's been tough to get that stuff, so it's gonna take a while for us to get over that kind of stuff, so.
What programs you got going now for the gym in the evenings?
Well, actually, we're in basketball season yet, so they're practicing tonight, the boys. Tomorrow night, we have a game. And they'll, hopefully with the win, we'll be practicing through Friday. And then we'll see where we're at next week, so.
You'll set up something?
Track is starting on Monday, the
Okay.
7th. Actually, should have started today, but we pushed it back a week. We're gonna do it on the 7th.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, just there, when you first started, you talked about an activities plan with athletics from the elementary to high school. Well, is that like gonna be something that's shared with our parents? Because one of the key things you talked about was parent involvement. And how could you use the plan to get parents more involved in our athletic programs?
Well, I think, first of all, if we develop a program that your elementary kids need to know this by the time they get to the middle school, or they need to know this before they get to the high school. I'm not gonna put blame on anybody as far as this goes, but I think we just need to do a better job in having a smooth running, how can I say it, transition from elementary to middle school to high school. We found that we're getting a lot of kids that are not fundamentally based when they get at our high school level. And like I said, I don't want to blame anybody, but we have to do a better job with those levels. And I think parents, hopefully, when they read this, will be more encouraged to make sure that their kids come to a summer workout. And like I said, it can't be just high school driven. It has to be middle school, has to be elementary driven as well. And that's the only way we're gonna be able to improve our programs.
Is there any type of training that coaches receive throughout the state that would help our program?
Every coach that coaches for us, they are required to take classes that in order to be a coach, you got character intervention, you got fundamentals of coaching, you have a concussion protocol, fall of the year, you have heat illnesses that you have to take. Those are required every year. Hopefully our coaches take it upon themselves to do the other work. Okay, so I need to know, as a basketball coach, I need to know, there's always new ideas coming. And hopefully they're getting online, or they're looking to see what they can do. And most of our coaches are like that anyway, at our level anyway. But I think that concept has to be done at the middle school and the elementary as well. So if you want to be an elementary coach, you should be required to do all the classes that our high school coaches do, because then there's a level of commitment there for them. And so that's my opinion on that. So, and we try to let them do their programs, but I think there are some things that we need to do to to kind of up the ante a little bit for those guys. Yep.
Chuck, those classes that you mentioned, are those all online?
Yes,
Classes there?
all of them are, you know, some of them cost you money. The fundamentals of coaching is a one-time class. You only have to take that one time and then you're good. The first aid is also a class that's required every 2 years, and that costs you money, but everything else is free. So the concussion, the heat illness, and there's a ton of classes on that website, NFHS Learn, that coaches can take, and a lot of our coaches take it upon themselves to do something extra with that. If there's something new in there, you know, they do it. So I'm really impressed with how they handle their education with that.
Some of them are required though.
Yes, yes. And that's mandated by the state, so.
That's all I have for you. Michelle? Jim?
Okay.
So you said that you guys had been talking about this, is it gonna be written up? Some type of, you mentioned what they needed to learn in the younger grades, and then will that be written up so that
Yes,
you?
yes, we'll try to put together like a pamphlet, and obviously, running is running, you know, and so, but we've gotta be able to spell out there what kids at the elementary level should be able to do. And obviously, some kids are good, some aren't, they're just gonna have to be taught how to be, you know, better, so.
Can I just say something, and I don't know if this applies to everybody, but I was visiting my grandchildren in Sioux Falls, and my little ones came home, my little grandbabies came home, and they took out of their bag, and they had like a calendar printed out. And on each day of the week, there was certain activities that they were supposed to do, like they were supposed to do 20 jumping jacks and some push-ups, and, you know what I mean, to get everybody involved. And then there were little tiny rewards and things like that for the students to be more active. And so I just wondered if we could incorporate something where we were encouraging. Back when I was in school, did you guys do the presidential fitness awards? And, you know, we tried to get everybody in shape. And I just think we've kind of fallen away from those things, haven't we?
Oh, yeah, oh, yes. And like I said, I think it has to be, we have to really work together at all levels, and not just the schools in Mission, but I'm talking about Oak Creek, Hedog, all of them, Spring Creek, all of those schools need to be on board with what we want to do. Then that way their kids actually have a chance of participating at the high school level. Kids are going to fall away if they're not fundamentally based, especially, you know, I'm talking about basketball. If they're not, I mean, they get kind of lost there. And I think our coaches do a good job of trying to keep those kids engaged and involved, but it can be disheartening for them, you know. But we just want to be able to encourage and get those fundamentals out of the way. Boom, you know, let's get this so everybody has, when they walk into high school level, are able to participate and compete.
Do you guys think that's important, to try and get our kids involved athletically? And
Yes.
I mean, just everybody, whether they're going out for sports or not, just
Any extracurricular activities, any of them.
And I think physical education is, you know, presidential fitness is usually part of that
I
program.
would say
so.
it's usually in their PE classes.
yeah. I'd just like to see them challenged to do something every day. Could we do that as a district?
I think we did during the pandemic, actually. The PE teachers sent out things to do, so I don't know why that couldn't continue.
Okay, anything else?
I got a question for you, I'll ask you outside. It's about a parent had a question about a piece of equipment. Did you get an email from somebody?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. And
You
a
got
phone
that
call.
too then, okay.
So, did get
I don't
that.
need to talk to you about it then,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks,
Thank
Chuck.
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, I have 3 things for you today. I will try to kind of, most of them are just an overview. So this is, I just brought this, a little bit of an update. So the Chichango Indigenous Principles of Learning Group met on February 17th, and we continue to draft our classroom observation. It's a non-evaluative teacher reflective tool and walkthrough tool. And we are drafting that. We're, those of us on the team are going to kind of make it get all the formatting done in its current state, and then Running First will return. It's actually on March 15th and 16th, not through the 17th, and we're gonna then be taking that tool into classrooms and working as pairs, and we're gonna go in and do classroom observations, using the tool to just start to calibrate between ourselves and just refine the tool. It's hard to kind of finish it unless you actually get into classrooms and use it and try it out and see what works and what doesn't work. So we're gonna use that kind of as a testing, couple days to test it out and see how it goes. And then revisions will be made after the fact. I brought 3 reports for you today. The first one is the fall to winter assessment growth report, and it's this kind of mega packet right here. Just I have a couple things to share before we really look at this. First of all, I want you to think of this as an internal document because it does compare schools, which is not appropriate outside of the board. So just kind of keep that in mind. And it also provides data for small schools, which really means we're identifying teachers. And so we also want to keep that close to ourselves. But all of the administrators have seen this, and this is going to be a document we kind of use just to start conversation as to where we're at. So a couple of reminders. We have not had any data for the last 2 years. And so it's really hard to look at comparative data from the past. So I guess, really we switched from the NWEA MAP assessment at K-8 to the iReady, which maybe at this point was the best time to do it, considering we didn't have a lot of data anyway, so it was a really good time to transition. I will say you'll notice in the reports that the iReady puts out are really nice. I did have to kind of manipulate a couple of them, but they're pretty nice as is. Currently, our current data is based on approximately 14 weeks of instruction before the assessment window opened in January. The plan is we will continue to implement current curriculum interventions that we have in place and continue to track data over time. There's no need to switch gears midstream just because of current data practices. It's not enough time to see really long-term trends. I want you to also know that 1 or 2 student scores in our smaller schools can significantly skew the data. So let's say you have a student who moved in at, let's say, Klein, and mid-semester, that 1 score could skew their data greatly, so just keep that in mind when you're looking at growth across time or the achievement data. So we're, let's start to try to read my notes. So for our purposes, we really want to focus on growth for our conversations with our administrators and staff, really thinking about, are our students meeting the growth expectations that are set in the iReady assessments and in the NWA MAP assessments? And if not, what can we do about it? And there's a lot of data in those student reports that we are going to, we encourage teachers to look at to really start making some of those decisions. Like, did the student take the test seriously? Is there, yeah, exactly, Tez is laughing. Right, it's the first time they've taken the iReady, it's a longer test. They're coming off of 2 years of not having any money academics. It's a tough thing to do. So understanding that taking a long test like this is not always the first thing they're really excited to do. But the teachers, there's a lot of data that shows, did the students rush the test? Did they have frequent guessing? The NWA does that. So the teachers can kind of look and see where they are. But I think what's most important is setting growth goals with students, being like, hey, this is where we currently are, let's look at growth goals. And we kind of want to say our growth goal would be that every student would grow at least 2 years growth in 1 year's time. We know that's not always achievable, but that's kind of a goal to set, especially for our students who are 2 years more or behind in grade level. So let me kind of just give you a couple of the highlights. The first 2 pages, pages 2 and 3, give you the diagnostic completion rates. One was for, just note, you'll see there's one for reading and one for math. So there's 2 different reports for each different things. So the first one is reading, the second one is math. Something happened, we have, one of our goals is to get higher, basically completion rates. But I would say our small schools did a very, very, very good job of getting their tests taken. So really excited about that, so give them kudos for that. All right, I wanna kind of show you, and you can sit with this later, but I wanna show you one thing, a couple things on these reports. So if you turn to page 4, it says diagnostic growth, all schools for reading. And if you look down at the bottom chart, it'll say percent of students with improved placement. If you see that column, it's like the second column from the right. This is a great column to look at because it really tells you, and that means it's basically a student went up an entire grade level. And so this gives you an idea of already how many students we have been pushed up an entire grade level so far this year. And so I just wanted to point out that that's a really nice part of the chart to be able to attend to. So even if it doesn't appear like we're getting as much growth as we would like, I think we also are getting those kids who are getting growth are getting pushed into that next grade level, which is our goal. We really want to see that growth. And then the next one is the math. You can kind of, starts on page 6. And these growth total, or these growth scores, are based on a cohort. So if they took the test in the fall and they took it in the spring, that's how that's getting reported. I do want to note that Todd County Elementary had, especially for something happened with their reading score or their reading tests, they did not have enough reading tests really to give you a good fall to spring report. But they did in math. So we're not quite sure what happened with that. Let's see, and then I give you a report so there's a report by school, and then there's also a report by grade level. So you can see at each of the different grade levels what growth looks like as well, and that starts on page 10. That's the one for math. And then I did a fall to winter comparison. Like I said, if you get a chunk of students who came in though, and had the assessment and either they were really high or performing really low, that can skew the test. So I just want to give you I want you to think of this as a baseline, not as a way to compare schools at this point in time, because we've not really had enough time to be able to do that comparison, and the data might be really off. Just trying to be a little cautionary not to read too much into it at the moment. All right. And if you ever have questions, if you want to sit with this later, review it later, and you have questions about it, I'm happy to meet with you. Even after, work stuff, if you want to stop by, I'm happy to stay late and meet with you and talk about the data and what it means. Or if you wanted to do a board work session that was just around data that wasn't an executive session, so it wasn't public, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
When it says annual typical growth, does
Yes.
that mean according to our
This is a
district
national
or-
norm,
Okay,
so it's
national.
nationally normed, typical
Okay.
growth. And then they also look at stretch growth, which is also nationally normed. So when you're looking, stretch growth is that the type of growth you want a student to achieve in a year to get them caught up to grade level within, I believe it's 3 years. Or, if they are 1 year behind, it would be stretch growth to get them caught up in a year. Any other questions just about the report? And it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot in there.
You want to take it in.
I know, so that's why I was like, if you just want to take it in later, take a peek at it. Just so you know, the high school one is using the NWA map, and they generally give it to freshmen and sophomores. If there are juniors and seniors in the class, they will also then take the assessment. That's one thing I want to talk to Randy and Mike about, is whether or not they're interested in giving it grades 9 through 12. I know it's not always a popular topic to ask for more assessment. However, we have a lot of students who are underperforming, and I'd like to be able to monitor growth a little bit better. But we'll have to talk about that. ties in. If other questions, we can, talk more in a different session or privately. I'm happy to meet with you to go over what that data means in more detail. I brought two other reports for you. This one is the Lakota Cultural Language Integration Report by school. So each school submitted information. Some schools actually submitted the OSEU lesson trackers that they're using to track their student lessons. The high school submitted theirs by department. Each department submitted a report, so it's kind of varied as to what they submitted. I do have one correction, and it's on the very last page. For some reason, I think, I talked to Tiana today, and she's like, there is no 6-8 at Littleburg. So that bullet is wrong. I think I've got this from possibly Leslie, and I think it's also the same thing they were doing at Oak Creek. So just a heads up, that's the 6 through 8 is not correct, but what they're doing K1 and 2-5 is the same. I don't know how that got all wonky. We are seeing a lot more, at least perception. It's kind of hard to know because we didn't always track necessarily originally what integration looked like, but we're seeing some really strong lists of what things people are doing, including counselors and things like that. So it was really exciting to see what they reported. And then the next report is from the OSEU Knowledge and Implementation Survey that we administered in January. And there were a couple of highlights from that survey. First of all, we had teachers from all schools complete the survey. We had 88 participants, or 88 teachers complete the survey in January compared to this last March in 2021 was 74, so about kind of similar numbers, about increase of about 10 or so. So the average level of understanding of the OSEUs is a 3, which is on a scale from 1, which is no understanding, to a 5, an in-depth understanding. The majority of teachers ranked their knowledge understanding of OSEUs at a level 3. We had, from March 2021 to 22, we had fewer teachers indicate that they never integrate the OSEUs, which is a big plus. From March to January, there was an increase in teachers who integrate the OSEUs weekly, monthly, and quarterly. 4 of the OSEUs were indicated of high interest that they wanted to be able to look, study more this summer during OSU PD and then continue through the year. So OSU 3, 4, 5, and 7, which I've written out here for you. Our respondents showed an interest in a variety of topics from the survey, and Nellie and I are using that along with the Lakota Cultural Language Committee to plan professional development for this summer for those 2 weeks of OSU PD. And we had 44 respondents who shared examples, specific classroom examples. We asked people to share their story, like what are they implementing, and we had 44 who shared some really great stories. I did not include them here. They're kind of, if you make your report really, really long. But we had some really nice things that people were doing, which allows us to follow up. So like Nellie can follow up and like, hey, would you share this? And then she can add that to the bank of resources that is going into the Schoology group, the Lakota Cultural Language Schoology group, which is pretty exciting. And she has been doing a ton of work to get extra lessons and things put in there, which has been really valuable. Any questions? I know I just threw a lot at you at once.
I'd like to see us set up a work session so you can go over some of these things.
Oh, I forgot to mention, Carol and I are going to meet with all the administrators and do one-on-one assessment discussions with them. And a part of that conversation is also around, well, what other things are you doing? Because remember, the iReady or the map data is just one piece of information that people are using, and so we want to, find out what other points of data are they using, and how are teachers using their iReady and math data, and do they need additional support to have, you know, those types of data conversations? So we're, tomorrow we have an admin meeting, we're gonna ask that they meet with us over the course of the next 2 weeks to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm sure you're getting callbacks or emails or a lot more.
It's a lot to go over, so.
I know, you guys got a lot to look at.
it's
I give
just-
you like bedtime reading material, put you right to sleep.
I mean, it's been kind of scarce the last year or two, so seeing, you know, data like this is.
I will say it was kind of fun to just get data in finally. It was nice to have something to look at. I kind of get nerdy about data, which is why your report's like 20 pages long, but. I'm excited more for the spring, because we'll have much, you know, it's much nicer to do a fall to spring, or even next year do a spring to spring.
Yep.
Look at the data. It's much more reliable at that point, but just, it's exciting to be able to have something to talk about and look at and really have some numbers for people to discuss.
So just one last question.
Yeah.
Is this iReady? Do the students seem to, I try to say instructors, are the teachers, are the staff enjoying using this program, or what?
From what I heard, they really like the reports. And there's also a classroom, it's called a learning path, so there are actually lessons aligned to it, so it's one of our intervention tools. So what can happen is the iReady will tell a student, like, well, basically it'll just give them the lesson for where they need to be, whether it's in math or reading, and it gives them exactly the lessons that they need to work on. So a lot of people are doing it as like a center or as independent time. So generally the recommendation is 30 minutes a day, either do your math or your reading. Some schools in the grade 6 through 8, it's a half an hour per content, so a half an hour of reading and a half an hour of math. And so those are being built into people's schedules so that every student is being able to use their individualized learning path. You can also customize the learning path. So let's say you're working in fractions in math, and for some reason they're in multiplication in their learning path. You can actually assign specific fraction content based on what you're doing in class that they can have additional practice in their learning path. It's very customizable. I believe, I don't know, you might maybe test probably, it can actually, it's better, generally user-friendly for both students and teachers. And I've not had any, nobody's told me yet if there's any like major negative response to the platform. Students seem to like it. They also have a bunch of math games in there that they can go in and play that are, kids seem to enjoy, that are also like learning like math facts and things like that.
So basically, they are able to show that they've mastered content, and then once they've mastered it, then they can move on to the
Yeah,
next.
what's really nice about the report, I should have, I guess, maybe brought a sample report for a student. What's really neat is it's broken down, especially for reading, it's broken down into the components. So phonological awareness, phonics, informational text, help me remember all the vocabulary.
Spelling.
So it has the 5 components, that's spelling, because that would be in phonics, so it's that's a phonics skill. So it has the 5 components, so like, let's say for our exceptional ed students who need a goal set, it can break it down by skill level instead of saying, well, you're at a reading level 12 or whatever that means. It actually says, well, you need, we need to work on decoding, or we need to work on the, these actual components. And you can track growth on that. It'll tell you whether you're on grade level or not on grade level for every single thing. And it tells you when you've tested out, like the phonics, because that only goes so high. It's really, really nice. The reports are really nice and much more helpful for knowing where to, how to help students in certain spaces.
I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
It is.
Forward to the meeting.
Yep.
Go over
Todd.
that more. For sure.
That'd be a long one.
It would be. Work week.
7, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to
So moved.
approve? Moved by Linda,
I'll second.
second by Michelle. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
5-0. Seven two. Before we vote on this contract offer, I would like for us to go into executive session for the wording of the motion. Personnel.
I agree.
Okay.
Personnel.
I need a motion.
I'll move.
Moved by Linda,
I'll second.
Tim,
I'll second, yes.
all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
6:21.
Feels good. I fell on the ice in Sioux Falls Saturday night.